Hello, everyone. This is Tuesday, February 19th, 2019, and this is the weekly meeting of Kubernetes SIG Docs. I'm Zach Arnold. To what appears to be my left is Jennifer Rondeau. We are your co-chairs. All right, let us start with new contributors. Sohaila, I do not recognize your alias, and so you look new to me, so welcome.
Thank you.
Do you want to say a little bit about yourself and introduce yourself?
I'm Sohaila, and I'm based in Munich, Germany. And I'm working for an automotive company, and we are just observing the different communities and SIGs in Kubernetes to see what we can, how we can start contributing into the community.
Awesome. Well, welcome.
Thank you. Very nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you too. SIG Docs is definitely a place you can contribute. So
thank you.
Welcome.
I'm looking forward.
Excellent. All right. Other new folks? Nope, everyone looks pretty familiar. Not that I'm not happy to see you, deeply happy, as always.
But new contributors are a very special sort of.
Yes. We're always happy to see new folks. Updates and reminders. Who is the PR Wrangler this week?
It's Raji.
Oh, excellent. Right, because I scheduled her to shadow last week. Thank you for mentoring her, Mr. Arnold.
Yeah, we did it in person.
Nice. Nice. That does not always happen. Very cool. Thank you, Zach, for wrangling and mentoring last week, and Raji is wrangling this week. Let's see, Raji is wrangling this week. I will remember to update the pinned note in SIG Docs Slack. All right. Oh, it's probably better for an agenda item rather than a reminder. I'm just adding a note to set a date for our first quarter priority meeting, where we set priorities and talk about goals for Q2. So we'll talk about that in a minute. Though since we're talking about it right now, why don't we talk about it first? There's a thought. So let's talk about setting our SIG Docs Summit for the end of March. Let's take a look at some dates really quick. I know that when we met in Seattle in December, we talked about doing an online summit. And I think that makes the most sense. It's going to be the way to get the maximum contributors involved. So let's take a look at dates for the end of March.
I have a meeting on my calendar. It looks like it's for the SIG leads for Q2 planning. So we're talking here about a meeting that's for sort of the whole group. So I'm assuming the meeting that I see is kind of the plan for the plan, or the plan for the planning meeting, the planning meeting for the planning meeting.
What date are you seeing that planning meeting? Because it sounds intriguing.
March 28th.
Well, I'll be.
The only reason I happened to notice it is I was cleaning up my calendar on a long commute the other day. Otherwise, I wouldn't know about it either right now.
Gotcha. No, that is not. So that is the tentative meeting that I put together. So that's not the plan of the plan. We'll have to plan the plan of the plan separately.
Right, it says placeholder. Never mind. Sorry.
That's all good. So how do folks feel about Thursday, March 28th? Let's see, from 3 to 6 p.m. Pacific time. Roy, I know that would be early for you. That would be like 6 in the morning on Friday the 29th.
Friday. I'm actually located in New York, so it's Eastern time zone for me.
Oh, gotcha. In that case, it would be like 6 to 9 p.m.
Yes, that sounds good.
Okay. General show of thumbs. Thursday, 3 to 6, March 28th for a quarterly planning meeting.
I can't make it.
Alas.
But I bet I'm not absolutely crucial to that meeting either. If it's difficult to come up with an alternative, that shouldn't be a blocker.
I'm sorry, Zach, can you say the date again?
March 28th, Thursday, March 28th, 3 to 6 p.m. Yeah. Cool.
So the only thing I can think of is I know that there's a service mesh day event happening in San Francisco during that same time.
Okay. Would you be able to join us, Chris, or is the service day like a conflict?
That's a conflict for me.
Gotcha. Okay.
There's a placeholder on my calendar, but the placeholder shows up as 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. because in PST. I'm assuming it's because you might have set it up in a different time zone.
Yeah, I was visiting some crazy place and.
Okay, all right. In the title it says 3 to 6 p.m., so that's cool. All right, all good.
Is there anyone else for whom that time is a deal breaker? So, Wela, I know that's going to be the middle of the night for you. I'm sorry.
No worries. I'm fine.
All right, then let's go ahead and plan for that day and time. Our second quarterly planning meeting, 28, 6 to 9 p.m. Cool.
We should probably leave that still tentative until we hear from other East Coast contributors, just because that is getting late. I'm thinking of Brad, for example.
That's fair.
My problem isn't the time of day, actually. I'm willing to go that late, but Thursdays are the one day I can't do it. But it's getting late for anybody on the East Coast, and we have I'm just thinking there are some other pretty key contributors here. So,
sure. But yeah, thank you for the reminder. Let's see. We can get more visibility on that date through through Slack and through email. We're still speak of the man, and he appears. Brad Topol.
What did I do?
You have arrived in a very timely fashion. So for our second quarter planning meeting, we are looking at Thursday, March 28th from 3 to 6 p.m. Pacific. And we're wondering if that time works for you. We know it's late in the evening for East Coast folks.
So what time is that? This is not a face-to-face or?
No, it's going to be online.
Online. Okay, what was the Eastern Standard Time?
6 to 9 p.m. on Thursday, the 28th of March.
Oh, March 28th. Should be okay.
Hooray! Excellent. And if there is a conflict, please let us know.
Sure.
All right. Let's move on with the agenda. So I want to plug for SIG Cloud Provider, and yay that Chris Hoge is here. So I think after talking with SIG Cloud Provider in the Kubernetes community meeting last week, I think it would just be really helpful for SIG Cloud Provider if they had someone to do kind of the deep language and mechanics wrestling on their proposed KEP template for cloud providers. And specifically, this is in the context of information for like the pick the right solution page, and revising that entire section. So Chris, feel free to jump in, but as I understand it, you've got a template, a KEP template, or sorry, a KEP open for a template that cloud providers would use to provide information about themselves, and getting some review on that, and getting some like just dedicated help in structuring what that information looks like for SIG cloud provider, that would be really helpful for you. Is that correct? And do you want to say anything more about it?
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, you know, mainly, you know, I've wanted to help contribute with some of the documentation, but my own limitations make it so that I can't, like if someone points me at a page where that says, or, you know, like just a very specific task, like, yes, we want to have, you know, providers have documentation in a particular way. I think that I can make headway on that. You know, and as part of that template, you know, being able to, you know the exact information we need, every cloud provider needs to have to run things so that we can kind of replace whatever's on the getting started page would, you know, I think that's something that we can and should be focusing on.
Cool. So if there is someone who would like to take that on, that's going to be a longer term task. I'm thinking probably like, my own estimate for it is like between 1 to 2 months, possibly into 3. So if there is someone who would like to be that kind of a dedicated resource for SIG Cloud Provider, and for specifically for SIG Cloud Provider documentation, please reach out to myself and to Chris Hoge. Chris, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Email works great. I'm Chris at openstack.org. You can also find me on Slack.
Would you be so kind as to put your email in chat so that we have that?
I will do that.
On record. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, and thank you for the link to the Kubernetes enhancements repo. Okay, Roy, let's move on to your item. So Roy is interested in talking about some translation software, Transifex, and is interested in talking about that with other localization teams. Roy, what would you like to say about Transifex and about working with other folks there?
Yeah, can you guys see my screen?
We can. I am going to ask, though, that maybe focus the majority of this content into the SIG Docs tools channel, and maybe keep this at a high-level overview.
Yeah, so can you guys see my screen?
Yep, go for it. Okay,
so I actually think about this Transifex last weekend. It's actually after I posted the issue flow board that the Chinese localization team member developers for managing the issue trackers. And then I realized we actually have kind of a localization management platform tool that use the Meetup, which I work for. So I just put up this document for share a few of my source. Maybe the tooling itself is not fully good enough for our flow, but I just want to share some ideas. So the main motivation part is right now we will agree that the translation work is outside the actual documentation writing life cycle, because the translation has to be after the actual documentation is written down in English, right? So it's actually outside the writing life cycle. So the translation model is built on the issue trackers either Korean or Japanese team has its own issue trackers, Chinese team has its own ones. We're trying to sort of generalize the issue trackers. At a meetup, we're actually using Jira for the issue tracker to manage the content, localization content. But it actually causing two problems. So first of all, it actually requires you to have a Git workflow understanding that you need to be familiar with Git to send a pull request. And you need to do CLA thing. Actually, CLA is necessary. The PR review is a very heavy process. So like, but Chinese team has a community to back it up. And also, I find a problem that usually for the easier ones, it's easy to pick it up. Like for example, the CLI command line translation, like which flag means what. Things like that. It's very easy to pick up. But for the long article, like a blog, like actual task, a setup task, or the concept things are very hard to work on. So it actually not easy to manage in the issue, GitHub issue. So a little bit of screenshot that currently we have for the Chinese team to use the GitHub issues. We have a separate issue tracker repo. We talked about this in the last KubeCon Shanghai, about this GitHub issue tracker. We have used it for more than many months. At the meetup, so right now, jumping into the things that I recently learned at our company, that we use Transfix to manage the localization app. So we have a React app. Along with the React app, there's a library called React internationalization. They actually pull in the translation. So sort of like a label. Most of you, I believe, we are actually using only for UI labels or description. So we have divided into three people. One is engineers like me, so we pull in the translation work. The other one is localization manager, could be anyone who is more familiar with the localization effort, coordinate that kind of thing. And the third thing is the translate. The translator is only down the translation stuff. It could be any single piece of the translation. And when the same translation get ready, it could be any time. So we just automatically, periodically pull in translations into our repo and then just show display on the screen. So here is what I have right now. I'm happy to share more information once I get better understanding of this workflow. Because this is more like the three kinds of people. One is the tooling side that Zach already mentioned. Another thing is like a localization manager, because it's about release, right? So you do want to coordinate the effort, like a priority, like the things. But the third thing is more important. It's like how to reduce the overhead to help the translator to translate what sorts of pieces of information. That is actually the most difficult I find in China's translation community, as well as the international community, because for Italian translation community, they only have one person who can help with this. I'm kind of thinking that we should adopt like a machine translation bundled with human review to accelerate the translation effort.
So I'm actually having a flashback. I do remember many moons and years ago, we were using Transifex for OpenStack translation. We had a crowdsourcing model, and from what I recall, the process was pretty slick to trigger off the different crowdsource-based translations. We moved to Zanata, though. The reason we moved is at the time, Transifex no longer supported an open source version of its code, and it went proprietary. And that made, from what I vaguely recall, that made the OpenStack team very nervous to be dependent on something that no longer had an open source code base and was now proprietary. And that caused them to move to Zanata, which was another similar technology. So just a heads up, because I'm just having all kinds of flashbacks from, I don't want to know how many years it was.
Okay, that's interesting to me. I didn't know what kind of this translation stuff until recently. Yeah, but
So-
I think it's TransFX has a pretty good open source support. I'm just not sure what are the actual repos actually using this.
So Roy, I guess I want to be clear. Are you suggesting that other localization teams adopt the Chinese team workflow?
For the issue for the flow bot, we can talk about separately because that has been generalized. We are going to have a team meeting this weekend to talk about how can we do kind of like a visualization of a progressive work. Because right now, as you can see, it's not very visualized for project management, like a project management level. It's more like just the individual issues get managed by the bot, which is separately hosted. So we are going to talk about this and we'll see how this can be used by the other internationalization team.
Okay. So again, it sounds like this is a really good discussion for SIG Docs tools. Because this is awesome. And it's also out of scope for a weekly meeting. So
Okay.
no, it's all good. I'm really glad that you've got this information together, and I really want to dive into it. But I'm going to ask that you wrap it up and continue the conversation in SIG Docs tools.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, that's what I have. And probably I have more information next week after this week's discussion.
Great. Thank you for sharing. This is anything that helps other localization teams, any work that helps localization teams work more effectively and more easily is awesome. So thank you, and thank you to the Chinese team for sharing their knowledge so freely.
Yeah, no
problem. Okay, is this, I see an item for discussing potential for a SIG Docs security group. Zach Arnold, is this you? You are muted,
Hi.
sir.
I
There you go.
did not unmute myself. Yep. All right. I am going to keep this as short-winded as possible. I remember as part of the Q1 ideals and goals is to be able to bolster and beef up our security documentation and aggregate it in a way that it's easy to follow as both a set of concepts and a set of tasks. And I have an idea of how to do this, and I'm happy to carry the flag, but after speaking with a few contributors, it seems like there is interest from the broader community to participate. So I wanted to open the proverbial doors, I suppose, to have other people join the effort in documenting security things. So I proposed it as a working group. I have no idea what the process is for that. I don't even know if working groups are things we do, but I wanted to suggest it and see what everyone thought.
Working groups for what?
Yes, so the specific purpose we are looking to achieve here is to come up with a somewhat comprehensive set of guidelines and documentation on securing Kubernetes, both securing the components of the cluster and running workloads securely in the cluster. And I think extraordinary precedent has been placed in lots of other tools where we've documented features that we have that are security related, and we've done a terrific job of adding glossary items on the various definitions of our keywords. But this would be sort of a way of addressing security concepts one at a time, from the cloud level all the way into the cluster, then the container, and then into the code level of this is what security looks like. And so the specific goal is to add documentation to the website to achieve that end. So that is the purpose of the group.
Yeah, strong +1 for me. I've heard lots and lots and lots of grumblings out there that Kubernetes insecure by default model is arguably like the biggest pain point for lots and lots of people. So I think anything we can do to throw our weight behind that sounds great.
I have a quick question.
I would say there's a fair amount of documentation there already. It may be that the trouble is finding it. But some of those topics have been worked on fairly recently, like the pod security policy topic and the network policy topic. So they might need to be moved or linked to better. But at any rate, in addition to new material, I would think a good, making the content we have discoverable and tied into the big picture.
Yeah, what I heard Zach say is, we do have a lot of good documentation about the sort of individual security-related features of Kubernetes. What we don't have is a good story about securing all of the things that are either part of or running in or on or affecting your cluster. And it's telling that story in a way, as you said, Steve, making it discoverable. Really bringing all of the pieces together, right? So that, the secrets are kind of, and like securing secrets, they're kind of hanging out in their own little corner of the docs. And then all of the access control related stuff is hanging out in another corner. And pod security policy is sort of hanging out with them. And especially, is also the case. I mean, we're a relatively rarefied group, but even Kubernetes admins and certainly devs working on Kubernetes clusters are not always as security aware as one might like. And in the absence of discoverability, things just get ignored. Or what is secure by default gets turned off in order to make something run. So I think there's, we all know how that one works. Just put your keys in your repo. People do that. So yeah, it both discoverability and then maybe possibly I might be adding to your mandate, Zach, and if so, I rescind this, but possibly some best practices guidelines while we're at it. Since, one of the things that Kubernetes does is offer you 6 ways till Sunday to do just about anything.
Yeah.
And 5 of those ways are not always optimal. So, we might not want to get too far into that territory because best practices are so very often context dependent in a way that we can't document. Right. So that's probably off the table certainly for a first project act. But I like just the vision of the architecture that you just gave us. I liked a lot. It felt like an easy to understand model, even in speech. Simple to implement, at least as a framework. Maybe not in the details, right? The devil's always in the details. But and Zach, you already know. Definitely count me in. I'm very interested.
Right. Well, thanks.
Yeah, I'd be interested in being in the working group. I don't have a lot of time, but I could participate in a small way.
So Zach, do you want to put together an official working group? Or do you want to go ad hoc for the first couple times? What do you want to do?
I have never done this before, so
neither have I. It's great.
So I mean, in the same way that the SIG Docs modeling group kind of spun off, that was sort of what I was expecting this to be. Is like we would have some visibility, like on the SIG Docs channel, and say, "Hey, we're meeting today, and if this time doesn't work for you, let us know because we'd like to include more people." But otherwise, I think the first few members, the charter members, would most likely define the meeting dates and times, and we would have our own subset of tasks and possibly a GitHub project. Again, I have not even thought about how I want to organize the group, just the content at this point.
Sure. And that's great. That's as it should be. Please don't get bogged down in bureaucracy and just go do the thing.
Okay.
And yeah, let your chairs support you by handling all of that stuff.
Okay. So do you want me to just post a message in SIG Docs and say like, hey, if you're interested, send me a message with some availability times, and I'll try to cut it down to what's good for people?
That sounds great. I would ask that you also send it to the email list.
Yep.
And just sort of maximize your pool of possible contributors there.
Terrific.
Roy, I see you have a question in Slack about how to collaborate with external efforts. Do you want to say more about that?
Yeah, I'm not sure whether you guys saw the DocCon conference this year, that they actually have lots of security topics. Especially recently there is a CVE bug for the Docker. It's pretty a huge bug about the root privilege attack. So from my side, I can see there are lots of efforts from especially Docker company or any other companies in terms of the container management thing. So I'm wondering how we can. I guess the folks already speak about this idea of how to collaboratively collect the water resources to address this huge topic. I know it's a very popular topic, especially these 2 years.
So you are asking how to make sure that any security discussion also is aware of external security efforts around Kubernetes as well?
Yeah, like I think he talked about the cluster level. The cluster level, I can see is very Kubernetes specific. But container level is very general. Actually, Docker has done lots of things on this area. So that's what I'm curious how to, have that kind of a conversation with a more wide audience to make the topic more valuable for the community.
Gotcha. And unfortunately, Zach Arnold had to drop off. So I would, that's a really valid perspective. I would encourage you, I would say bring that up with Zach. Like the first time that the security working group meets, I would raise that, Roy.
Okay.
Because that's awesome to be aware of overlapping layers of concern like that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Brad, KubeCon Shanghai.
Yeah, so pretty straightforward. Is anybody else going? Are we doing a doc sprint? Are we doing a main track intro deep dive session? Do we have stuff that we need to do there, was my question. I'm there and here to serve.
So quick show of hands, who's going to KubeCon Shanghai or planning to? 1, 2, 3. Jared is giving the big no.
Beautiful city, just saying.
So I see 3 folks going. I know, Roy, I am guessing that like the localization folks there want to attend. I know, Roy, you and I had spoken maybe about a month ago about making time to like do a pitch for to do like recruitment for more localizers, more people to work on the project. So right now, I have signed us up for a SIG deep dive, or I guess a SIG intro. And that is a half-hour slot in the main track. It's in the SIG deep dive and intro track. In the past, all of the KubeCons in the past, we have been part of the community day, that effort. So we have the opportunity to sign up for the main track, and I signed us up for that. That's not to say that we can't also do like a community day, do like I guess we could do like a localization sprint as part of the community day, but I wanted specifically to get into the main track so that we could be, so that we could give Roy specifically some time to talk about localization and do some recruitment for localization for Chinese docs. So honestly, my plan is to get up front, sort of provide the nice candy shell on the talk, but then mostly let Roy talk about localization and how to contribute there.
Fantastic. And then were we going to do anything for Community Day, or we're not sure? So that's the main track one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then,
so I'm willing to sign up for Community Day. I would just like to go in with a sense of what specifically we'd like to do. In the past, we've had, I know that we've had doc sprints that have, but they've been kind of loosely clustered around an idea. I guess that's a great question for Roy. Roy, would you like to do a Community Day where, like we did last year, where we have people gathered to talk about so last year we really kind of ironed out the workflow. Do you want to have a Community Day where we specifically sit around and localize docs?
I think that actually depends on how far we can go with the tooling. So if we standardize the tooling right now, it's almost pretty much standardized. Depends on the work progress of that work. We can decide how we can express the knowledge, spread the knowledge across the team. Yeah, probably next time I can actually write a more formal workflow document, share with the SIG Docs tools team and review by the team. It can be generalized and it can be more useful for get more feedback.
Okay.
Yeah.
so I'm in the camp with you, Zach. If there's a way that it's productive, then I'm happy to say let's do something. We did so much big progress the last time in Shanghai, and you worked out all the workflow and all the issues. I could understand why we're like, well, we kind of worked this all out the last time. So only if there was in fact, I was even thinking the 30-minute slot where we just talk to folks on Community Day was what I was thinking, Zach. But I just wanted to kind of throw that out there and see what you all were thinking. If we're like, well, we kind of really solved this the first time, I'm totally cool with that.
Sure. I think ultimately, Roy, it's going to be up to you and up to Julia and Julia's team to determine whether or not you want to do like a doc sprint as part of the Community Day, or whether you just want to do like a conversation as part of the SIG Docs, or as part of the main track intro.
Yeah. So well, we will see, and I will certainly bring this up this weekend to see what they are, especially what Julia is thinking.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Jim Angel, do you want to give us an update on 1.14? Jim Angel, 1.14. Paging Jim Angel to the front of the store, please. Well, 1.14 is the thing that's happening. Jim Angel is associated with it. I hear it's going well. All right. Well,
Jim, it looks like you're on mute if you're still really with us.
Hey, can you hear me?
hey, there he is.
Sorry, my internet's kind of poor here. So yeah, for a 1.14 update, there's roughly 40 enhancements assigned for, or I guess planned for the release. So I've divvied up kind of the different enhancements to various Shadows members. I see we have a couple of folks on the call, which is awesome. Those who aren't aware, I should say, whereas at SIG release, they're requiring every single feature or enhancement coming in to have a KEP, and it has to be an implementable status. So that really helps narrow down what's coming in the release, and it really gives at least SIG Docs a good impression of what to be on the outlook for. So you're not going to get caught with a curveball, hopefully. There's a PR deadline for March 1st. This is just a placeholder PR. So a lot of the interactions with the different KEPs and the different enhancements that are going in is more of a, hey, what's the current status? Are we ready to at least open up a placeholder PR, or does this even need docs in general? And so far we've seen, we got about a third of the enhancements don't need docs, and some of the other ones are starting to get the process moving forward there. And I'm hoping by pinging them early, we can get a head start on that. outstanding items. I still need to merge master. Not still. I need to continually merge master in the developer branch, so it's all up to date with the current current branch. And that's about it. There is also the draft for the Docs handbook. I was working with Stephen Augustus, and he wanted to see that at least in a completion form of a draft this week. So I'll have that submitted. And I've also shared out the kind of running the running document with the shadows as well, so we can all kind of collaborate that together. And then I'd like ultimately, once we have that draft published, to get some feedback from SIG Docs and make sure we're not missing anything there. And then lastly, I've synced up with the release team to make sure that any of the notes coming in, we all have a pulse on. And so far, I haven't seen anything too crazy there. But I'm just getting back from vacation a couple days ago, so I'm still kind of in massive re-entry mode, and that's pretty much where we're at for 114 now.
Sure. Cool. Is there anything that you anticipated my question nicely? Is there anything that you want review on right now?
Yeah, so right now I don't think so. I'm out of it, so I need to figure out if there's anything there. Are you referring to the handbook or just anything in general?
Anything in general.
Okay, yeah, so anything in general will probably be something I start pinging folks and bothering everybody about down the release cycle, but the handbook will be very soon, I think, here, where we have at least a working draft. I have a lot of to-dos in there. And so, so once we get that draft published, basically Stephen wants a mergeable status or a mergeable ready PR for that. So I'd like to get some feedback on that as we merge it in there and as future release teams start looking at that stuff.
Awesome. Who's doing release notes this cycle?
I forget. No, Jiffy or Jeff Sicka.
Oh, excellent.
He's one of the shadows there, and then I forget who's actually taking.
Looks like Jennifer. Do you know who's doing release notes this cycle?
I don't off the top of my head, but I can certainly find it if we don't get Jim back, or if there's need to uncover the information.
Strebel, David Strebel, maybe. I believe he's Dave Strebel. He's the lead, and then he's shadowing with Jeffrey, Lindsay, and Elena.
Awesome. Thank you, Jim, for all of your work that you're doing there, and thanks for the update. All right, so that brings us to the end of our agenda. Anything that folks want to discuss in the last few minutes? All right, that's the SIG meeting. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.
Thanks a lot.